OMGM! Welcome to the chain. Now you're listening once again to DevChain Diaries, the podcast where tech meets culture and the future meets the world.
And now we're talking about blockchain. Not bitcoins, not scams, but the actual technology behind it.
So, and here's something for our listeners out there. So, imagine you are in a group project in which it has only one notebook and everyone has to write in it. But nobody trusts each other. Now, how do you make sure that no one cheats? That's basically the problem blockchain solves.
So, from distributed ledgers to smart contracts that literally pays your salaries automatically, we're going on full tech mode today, Paolo.
Okay.
No fluff, no hype, just real mechanics.
And of course, we have once again our guest speaker, Sir Ruben Lacumba from the Davao DeFi community.
Thank you.
Round of
Thank you,
applause, please.
Thank you guys for having me again with this discussion, which is I'm very happy also because we wanted to share what we've been doing in our community and of course regarding the tech itself.
Yes, sir. So, let's start the podcast with a question. What blockchain really is?
Yep. Okay, so I think one of the most interesting thing is everyone trying to ask what is really blockchain. So let's try to backtrack a bit before like trying to discuss about blockchain. So I think everyone would agree that everything now runs on database. I mean, no web applications or any applications that solely run by its applications. At the back end of it, there's really a running database, and I can still remember being a database administrator way back before, also during my work days. So we uses MySQL, and we even integrated some of the open source like MariaDB and other stuff. So on that context, those databases that are running are really owned by a company, really owned by an organization or a group or a people. So the ownership is tied up to them. Now imagine like on the same context, processing your data at the same time on the context of database, but there are inherently security levels that being infused on the processes. One of that is what we call cryptography. So as the data passes on, automatically it's being encrypted and linked to solidify the integrity of the data itself. Then add another layer, the inherent auditing level, self-auditing level will be encompasses with different entity or around entity that basically verify the truthfulness of the data. So on that level of context, that's a very huge what we call security implementation on a Web2 concept. I could definitely deploy other security features to make that happen, but if we say that blockchain basically do that everything in just a one inherent native process. So we can say that blockchain is a database that has native cryptographic functions to secure data and at the same time implement what we call consensus mechanism that verifies the data if it is correct. So that's why we always say that it's a database that is basically append only. So once data is being inputted and verified, it will be there forever and it will not be changed anymore.
So, basically, personally, Paolo, let's say Paolo, kami sir is palagi kami naririnig when we talk about blockchain, makakonect talaga siya sa cryptocurrency and bitcoins. Is it one as better, or it is like has a standard hierarchical something?
Are they different?
Or the different ba?
Okay, so yung blockchain kasi, yung prefiguration niya, it's really more on like the infrastructure. So kumbaga, what's the infrastructure of internet? Of course, network. So network runs the internet basically. So dito naman, yung blockchain basically is the infrastructure, and on top of that, you can create different narratives or even applications. So one of the narrative and applications is cryptocurrency. Why it fits? Because basically the first blockchains being created, what we call Bitcoin, it's not really about just Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin. The tech itself is what we call peer-to-peer transactions. So imagine that sending an asset directly to the recipient without intermediaries or middleman. So that would basically like amplify the frequency and speed of transferring value asset from the sender to the user. Because when you say peer-to-peer, it basically dissolve the concept of demographics. So I can be a sender from the Philippines and you can be a recipient from the North Pole. So it does not basically signifies that we cannot exchange because I have a different demographics, I'm from US and that, which is inherently what we have now. That's what's happening. You cannot use your peso to Japan.
Yes.
It needs to be FX or exchange to yen before they will able to process that. Now there was what we called an avenue where a fully digital asset will be recognized globally using peer-to-peer transactions, and that's Bitcoin. So that's basically one of the first byproduct of blockchain. So the one who is running that Bitcoin is the blockchain infrastructures on top of it, on below of it. So that's why there's a peer-to-peer transaction because of the Bitcoin blockchain network.
So, in related to that, sir, the problem we mentioned is, for example, the Japan and then the Philippine money currency. So, in related to that, or something like problem, before blockchain, sir, is there a specific problem that na ginawa lang yung blockchain para ma-solve yung problem na yan?
Okay, so way back ahead, I think blockchain is considered is one of the what we call distributed ledger technology. So yung concept nun is how you distribute data on a process of decentralized, na hindi siya concentrated for the purpose of course, number one attributes is yung I think most of the IT agrees, kasi sa akin din during that time, yan din yung pinoproblema ko, yung tinatawag natin na single point of failure. If mag-failure yung hardware level, applications layer, and even failure yung tao mismo, na magkaroon ng problem executions, detrimental siya sa operation or on a larger scale. So that's why, as much as possible, we try to do redundancy. So yun yung attributes ng trajectory niya. Pero ang nangyari is blockchain as being well adapted kasi nga meron siyang mga tinatawag na added layer, like yung tinatawag natin na consensus. So isa yun sa mga powerful attributes during that time, like what happened to Bitcoin. The Bitcoin network is run by what we call a distributed node across the globe. So walang demographics, not pre-identified. Imagine that hindi mo alam kung sino yung nagbabalidate ng data and information during that time. And it's spread across the globe. So ano yung mga properties na inherently nakuha mo dun? Number one is censorship. Hindi mo siya ma-censor kasi you never know who's running the node and verifying the data. Then since it's distributed, inherently yung tinatawag natin na biases ay hindi na i-entail kasi hindi tayo makakilala, but we're on the same network and we don't have the same opinion, but we basically agree on one point that this data that's being run on the blockchain network is true. And sa blockchain network naman, ang ginagamit niya is yung tinatawag natin na computational power. So yung computational power, yun yung nagbabalidate coming from the different node distributed across the globe na yung data na yun is truth and processes. So kung titingnan mo from the node level to the computational power, it's very powerful on the context of security level. Parang may dinaanan mo dumaan siya sa isang very complex process before mo siya ma-validate na yung isang data is true or legit in the process. Kasi kung Sa database level, kung ano yung in-input doon, yun yung marireceive ng data, sino yung magbabalidate, yung database administrator, and including yung CEO. But of course, how you can guarantee truthfulness with human, kasi nagkakamali tayo, mayroong mga factor. For example, yung database manager, during that day, iniwan ng kanyang girlfriend, so wala siyang pakialam kasi bad mood siya. So there could be bad decision along the way na interact. Pero yung blockchain network, na-expand yung security level niya, meron siyang computational functions. So inherently, it will function according to its, kung mahihit yung tinatawag natin na parameters, it will execute accordingly. So yun yung isa sa mga pinaka-powerful factor na inherent. And of course, I'm just mentioning yung first blockchain talaga na ginawa. And I've said before na yung blockchain way back before and now is really too advanced already. There are a lot of innovations being added. Pero yung whole context is still the same. It's still decentralized, it's still having cryptographic native functionality when it comes to securing the data. Of course, yung cryptography nag-advance na din. Then yung consensus mechanism still distributed across the globe, pero yung consensus itself nag-advance na din. So the advancements is basically trying to refine and make blockchain as much as possible to the level of security, functionality, and execution. Mabibilis siya, much more secure compared from the last period of time. And of course, mayroong mga inherent technologies na dinadagdag as an added feature sa system na yun.
So going back, sir, I'm sure, sir, many of our viewers, sir, are confused about the block and the chain concept. So let me ask, sir, like, why is it called a chain, sir? Like, what's connected to it, sir? And, I mean, how does it really connect, sir?
Yeah, okay. So i-kuha natin, i-low level natin na discussion to. So kung titingnan natin, like for example, on a layman term, parang when you say ledger, sabihin mong ledger, of course, it really encompasses, ledger can be a book na sinusulat mo lahat ng information, or it can be a notebook. So siguro i-paste na natin ang notebook, which is very familiar everyone. So lahat ng data sa notebook na yun, ini-input mo. Then ang notebook na yun is hindi lang ikaw ang may copy. I mean, you elevate some persons na would qualify as a valid and trusted person na magkaroon ng copy ng data. So nag-input ako ng data doon, then lahat sila nakakaroon automatically ng the same data information. So meron silang copy. So on the level of redundancy, sobrang redundant siya in a sense kasi iba't ibang person. And itong mga tao na to na in-elevate ko, it does not basically lives on the same demographic na Pilipinas. Can be a Korean, it can be a European, it can be a Latin American. So mas nag-expand siya, mas naging powerful yung distribution ng information ng data. Aside na meron silang copy, by themselves would agree kung yung sinulat mo is truth or not. So pag magsulat ako nito ng information, then mara-write sa kanilang data, everyone will consensus, oops, tama ba yung sinulat ni Rubes ngayon? Na sabi niya, meron siyang 1,000 pesos. Pero kung titingnan natin, based sa kanyang history, meron talaga siyang 1,000 pesos. Okay, so let's agree. Pag once na-voted na agree lahat yung that would be committed as a data information. Yun na yung nagkakaroon ng tinatawag natin na immutable data. Forever na siya na mai-input doon. At when I say committed and immutable data, it's being inputted on the correct timestamp. At this date, at this second, at this hour. So, meron talagang data information doon na nakommit din siya. Now, on the context na nagsabi ako na 10,000 pero ang totoong ang data information ko is 1,000 only. So parang in-inflate ko yung information ko. Then every consensus, yung merong copy would validate if totoo ba yan. So kung titingnan, example, meron akong isang node na kaibigan ko, sinonvince ko, agree with me na 10,000. Paghatian natin to. So that we could change the information and the truth will be 10,000, not 1,000. Pero kung titingnan mo, ang node validator is like, for example, 100. So 2 versus 100. So everyone can still verify na kung tama yun. If majority agrees na hindi nga 10,000 sa akin, so automatically my data will not be validated. And pag once na hindi na-validate yung data na yun, is automatically it will not be added dun sa block na network na. Meaning, I'm a good actor. I mean, a bad actor in the sense. So, merong tinatawag na mechanism din na nilagay yung blockchain how to retain good actions doon sa network itself. So, one way or another is meron silang tinatawag na slashing. Like for example, if ako, meron akong value na dinagdag doon sa network to be a participants, pag nag-bad actions ako sa network, automatically isa-slash nila yung value na binigay ko doon. And that's a very huge slash talaga na parang may hit talaga sa'yo. Para people or validator would compel to be truthful. Or else, net negative ka dun sa value na binigay mo sa network. So, yun yung parang magko-compel sa akin na kailangan hindi ako magbabad actor in the sense. Pero, ang kagandahan, yun nga, it's not centered to me but verified by everyone. So, bibigay ko kayo ng context ha. Like, let's dive into the actual scenario. Like Ethereum, which is a proof of stake. Yung sinasabi ko ngayon kasi, backtrack ko pa pala, yung sinasabi ko kanina, yung Bitcoin is validated through power, yung computational power. Nung lumabas ang Ethereum, binago nila yung scenario, hindi na power, kundi economy na or value. Yung sinasabi ko na bibigay ka ng value. Like for example, I want to be a part of validator of Ethereum. I will put $1 million on my portfolio, then I can validate data. Then I get some incentives once data is being validated na correct. Meron ako makuha incentives. Kasi good actor ako. Pero pag bad actor ako, yung 1 million ko, imagine that 60% of it mawawala. Di ba? Ang sakit. So I would really maintain myself na dapat truthfulness ng action ko or else ma-jeopardize yung value na binigay ko dun sa network. So yun yung nangyari sa Ethereum. Now, na-expand pa yan kasi dumadami yung validator. So like for example, Ethereum now has 1.4 million validators across the globe. Hindi mo alam kung saan yun sila nakadistribute. If I will be a bad actor, ang hirap i-convince ng 1.4 million na yung data ko is the correct one. Di ba? Kasi they have sovereign information, then titingnan nila and they would compel to be a good actor kasi masaslash din sila. So, lumiliit yung window to manipulate data. So, yun yung kagandahan. It's a very powerful security aspect na na-implement yan siya kasi the more na dumadami yung validator, the more na nagiging security proof ang network. Very powerful siya. Even a hacker has a very hard time na kailangan i-convince mo yung 60% of the validator saan ko hahanapin across the globe yung 60% in a window of seconds. Kasi yung execution seconds lang yan para ma-validate yung isang block. So libutin ko yung buong mundo to convince in a few seconds to validate. So, ang daming layers of attributes yung blockchain na nagko-constrain ng for hacking purposes or trying to manipulate data. Kaya mostly na-maintain niya yung level of authenticity. So, mag-add lang ako saglit na another additional. Mostly kasi yung hacking nangyayari hindi sa infra. Ang infrastructure is rare talaga nagkaroon. Infrastructure, when I say blockchain infrastructure, rare talaga nagkaroon ng mga hacking or scam, ganun. Mostly nangyayari siya dun sa application layer, which is basically not the infra. Bad code, hindi na audit, mga ganun. Then ang pinaka-prone is social engineering sa tao mismo. Nakaka-click ng phishing site, nag-accept ng mga email, doon nag-proliferate lahat ng mga security issues. But so far, like Ethereum for 10 years, nagiging 100% uptime. Imagine that, 100% uptime. Hindi yan siya nag-offline ever since. And there's no major hacking or even minor hacking happening. Mostly doon sa level lang, which is still progressing sa security. Pino-fortify na din eventually. So yun yung concept ng blockchain. It's a notebook shared, yung decision making, na yung data sa notebook is truth, is merong level of consensus so everyone, and meron ding copy na distributed sa isang on a wider scale na yung single point of failure hindi mangyayari kasi nga hindi lang stored sa isang identity. Then merong cryptographic level pa na encryption directly natively from the data itself. So there are really layers of securing. Pero overall, those are just the process of inserting information or data directly to the blockchain. Yun yung nangyayari sa process. Insertion lang yun ng data. Pero ang daming processes na nangyari on top of it before nakukumit yung data na makaka-sure tayo na truth yun. Or what. Yeah.
Okay, so my key takeaways what you've said earlier, sir, is that we can assure that blockchain really is a secured technology by having validators and forcing them to be a good actors.
Yeah.
So consensus.
Consensus. Yeah.
And then also let's talk about the privacy. I've heard that if you put your money on the blockchain, everyone can see it. So how does the privacy works
Okay.
at that specific?
Okay, that's a very good question kasi timely siya ngayon. Kung titingnan natin, there was someone asking, why is most of the public blockchains now are really fully transparent? I mean, verifiable. I mean, open book lahat, makikita lahat. So, ang best answer talaga niyan is because the mechanism itself is inherently requiring na magiging public talaga siya. Kasi the only way you can verify data which is truth and tama is dapat public talaga siya, accessible. Kasi kung hindi siya public, hindi mo verify, di ba? So kaya yung mechanism ng blockchain itself is really intended and wired to be really public kasi nga sa kanyang consensus level mechanism na kailangan mabiging verifiable. Then the big question is, how about yung privacy level? Kasi sinasabi nila na the only way na meron kasing narrative na tinatawag natin na decentralized finance, which is run under the banner of blockchain, yun nga, inherent. Pero this decentralized finance is fully public. Nakikita lahat ng mga galawan mo doon. And the only way to onboard institutional finance and even banks na papunta doon, kasi merong law, na privacy law, na you cannot basically see the information, yung mga sensitive data, like for example, account numbers, yung deposit mo, is through privacy. So, at the present time, it's being worked on. So, meron na tayong tinatawag na mga technology before it's being talked on pero hindi pa na-implement talaga kasi there's no technology yet that could put privacy level on a public blockchain. Pero ngayon, meron ng, I think we are on the phase na ready na yung technology. Yung meron tayong tinatawag na which is a very powerful one, which is ZK, yung tinatawag na Zero Knowledge Proof. So yung Zero Knowledge Proof will basically, and meron pa yung ibang klaseng cryptography, I really forgot the name, pero ang purpose talaga nun is to put privacy as a service doon sa public blockchain. Ang purpose na, meaning, bigyan ko yun ng sample, like, if ma-implement na yung ZK and yung privacy cryptography, is parang meron kang wallet, when you sign in transaction to the wallet, doon tumatakbo ang blocks, di ba? Ang blockchain, doon nagkikreate ng data. Ngayon, you have an option. Yun yung goal nila, parang magiging switch lang, abstracted, para as simple as possible, na pwede mo i-turn on and turn off yung privacy. Like for example, I'll send you a $100, pero gusto ko privacy ito na transaction, so I could turn on my wallet na pag execute nito, shielded yung transaction. When I say shielded, covered, hindi siya publicly. Oh. So the only way na pagdating sa iyo ma-unlock mo yung privacy is kailangan mag-sign yung private key mo then. The private key will basically unlock those encryption and magiging visible na siya. Pero publicly, no one can see it. Kasi sa default ngayon ng blockchain, whether we like it or not, pag nag-send ka, makikita siya. Pero yung de facto default niya is nasa, hindi tayo anonymous, kundi pseudonymous. Kumbaga, your wallet can be seen in the public in a form of alphanumerics, ang haba. So, they cannot identify na ikaw yun. Except na lang na kaya nila i-map out sa'yo. Pag na-identify and map out na nila, alam na nila na, oops, itong wallet na to is owned by Rubes, even though na alphanumeric yung doon. Depende na yun sa ma-identify. And there are some also technologies like yung nawag natin na ENS, yung Ethereum naming service na pwede mo yung wallet mo, di ba, hindi mabasa by default. Pwede mo yung address wallet mo, i-map out mo siya sa name. Like, for example, rubes.it is equivalent to x009944 public address. So, meron na yung technology na din na yan. So, depende na yun sa iyo kung you want to go public, fully, or you want pseudonymous. Then, yung sabi ko ngayon, yung added layer na they want to put privacy as a service on top of a public blockchain.
So, let's try to connect it with this most famous thing when we're talking about blockchain, sir, the smart contract. So, in layman's term, what really is a smart contract and how does blockchain correlates to this smart contract thing?
Okay. So, yung smart contract was really started because of Ethereum. Kumbaga, nung time kasi na yun, Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer transaction. So kung makikita mo, walang application, walang tinatawag natin ng decentralized application. So parang ang boring ng crypto kasi asset lang. Now, ang ginawa nila is nag-develop sila ng smart contract na using smart contract, you can basically now program. Yung magiging programmable na siya. You can create applications, front-end, back-end, lahat-lahat. So, si Ethereum talaga ang pinaka-first na gumawa ng smart contract. So, parang meron dong code. Then, yung code na yon is self-automating. Pag once merong matrigger na parameters or execution level, tatakbo yun siya according to that setup. Like for example lang, bigyan ko kayo ng setup na pinaka-basic. Yung pinaka-basic applications na ginawa nila doon is gumawa sila ng parang replication ng bank. When you deposit asset, automatically yung smart contract maghahanap siya on how your asset will be getting value and incentives. So i-execute niya yun. Mayroong mga strategy and parameters yun. Pag once na-hit na yun, automatically yung value na na-capture niya, ibabalik niya dun sa wallet mo. Pero non-custodial yun kasi nga owned by the user pa rin. So, meaning once you sign, you approve and allow these applications to use my asset in my wallet, not on the application, to any strategy that he wants. So, nag-execute siya. So, kung titingnan mo, ang smart contract, parang pa rin siyang web applications. Merong front-end, back-end. And ang database niya, nag-flow papunta dun sa blockchain, sa infrastructure itself. So, yun. Dahil dyan, ang daming applications. Lumabas yung NFT, lumabas yung DeFi, real-world assets. So, lahat yan, run by smart contract.
So, if we have smart contracts, sir, let's assume that we have also a thing called regular contracts. And if there is not regular contracts, what is the difference niya sa smart contracts? How do they work?
Okay, sa naming ng Web3, yung pinaka-default de facto talaga smart contract. There's no such thing as yung regular contracts. So, kung i-phrase natin yan siya, yung smart contract is a regular contract. ang naming lang is ginawa na siyang smart kasi nga nasa on top of a blockchain siya. And of course, meron siyang tinatawag na full automation. Nag-automate siya without intervention of human. So parang ang code itself will run by itself. And ang kagandahan kasi niya ngayon, kung titingnan mo, meron siyang composability. When you say composability, meron kang smart contract, meron akong smart contract, meron siya. I can create my smart contract na part of my functionality is pupunta sa iyo. Pag ma-trigger ka, pupunta ka din sa kanya. So meron tayong composability. We can run as one applications, we can run as a multiple applications, pero pwede tayong mag-interact autonomously based sa functions. Of course, depende na yun sa programmer on how you execute. Pero yun yung kagandahan na kasi pwede yung actions mo dito will run on multiple smart contract and magiging output doon papunta sa iyo. Hindi mo makikita abstracted na tumakbo pala ito sa different contracts. So meaning, meron talagang amplification na tinatawag natin ng programmability. Para siyang Lego ba? Na kaya mo siya i-form according to your functions. Meron kang freedom to do everything according sa maisip mo. Kaya, ang daming pwede i-build on top of that. Yun yung kagandahan niya.
So there's no such thing as a regular contract. At least the viewers or the students that watching this ma-inform sila.
Default na yun.
So wala palang regular contracts.
So basically, sir, smart contracts is just a code, sir.
Code lang talaga siya.
Ma-execute siya sa isang
web applications. So, like for example, you can create a website, then lagyan mo ng functionality, ano yung purpose ng e-commerce ba siya, NFT marketplace, then furthermore, create it more composable na pwede makakonect din sa other contract. So may freedom ka talaga to execute everything you want.
So, I'm gonna move forward, sir. Ibahin ko yung context. So I've heard, sir, in some news, sir, that blockchain, sir, requires energy, sir. So what are your thoughts on that, sir?
Yes. Actually, maganda yan na discussion. Pero, yung heavy energy consumption kasi ng blockchain was basically really correlates during the Bitcoin times because meron yung proof, di ba sinabi ko niya is consensus mechanism. The way blockchain, Bitcoin network verifies is through computational. Kung titingnan mo yung context doon, tinatawag nilang mining, Bitcoin mining, is yung yung tinatawag natin ng mga validator or verifier is bumibili ng mga powerful GPU. Kasi yun yung pagtatakbo yung algorithm doon, yung functionality na i-input mo, papasok ka sa blockchain network, yun yung power ang gagamitin to solve mga logic. Then eventually pag ma-solve yun yung magbabalidate sa processes. So yun yung tinatawag na proof of work. So heavy masyado siya sa power kasi nga computational. Pero yun, dahil doon nag-transition yung innovation from Ethereum. Ethereum started as a proof of work, pareho talaga kay Bitcoin. Then meron pa rin siyang smart contract. Si Bitcoin is walang smart contract, peer-to-peer lang talaga. Sa Ethereum meron smart contract with proof of work. Sa early days niya yun, pero transition siya into proof of stake, which is the second level of consensus mechanism. So yun yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na economic value na yun, hindi na power. So kung titingnan mo yung power consumption ni Ethereum sa simula, top, pag proof of stake niya, plummet like 95%. So nagiging parang green energy recipient na siya na blockchain. Kasi proof of value na ang nilalagay, which is basically we call that stake. You put your stake that you want to participate and meron kang tinadala na value doon. And those value na nilalagay mo will be the source of the verification if you're a good or a bad. Yun sinabi ko, may slashing and incentives if you're a good actor.
So, related sa yung sa powerful GPUs, I've heard some news that a teenager, he rented a house or he bought a house that nilalagay niya yung mga computers niya to just mine Bitcoin. From a perspective ng isang student na hindi alam ano yung mining ng Bitcoin, sir, what really is mining? Ano yung minamine? Ano yung...
So, yung sa mining kasi, which is tinatawag natin na legacy na siya. Legacy siya kasi siya yung sa mga early days ng Bitcoin sa consensus. So sinasabi ko, yung GPU na nilalagay niya sa PC is yun yung through those computational power, yun yung magbabalidate ng data pag pumasok. For example, may transaction na pumasok, nag-generate ng blocks. Yung blocks meaning parang blocks lang talaga propagation pero nandun yung data, lahat ng information and all the cryptographic security. So pag once i-validate yun siya, gagamitan ng computational functions. Pag once ma-unlock mo yung validation through computational functions, bibigyan ka ng incentives ng Bitcoin network. Yun yung Bitcoin. Kaya tinatawag na mine. Kasi na-mine mo yung Bitcoin kasi you participated on the verification. And naging successful yung verification mo. Pero, ang concept nun, the more powerful your GPU, the more basically it mines. Pero kung titingnan mo ngayon, at the current price of level, kasi sa laki ng value ng Bitcoin, the network still exists. So, meron pa rin miner. Pero yung trajectory ng advancement ng blockchain for adoption is nasa proof of stake na talaga. Wala na siyang computational. Kasi value and economic is really more powerful and of course energy efficient, friendly sa environment. Lahat ng mga aspect ng environmental is nagko-comply siya. So doon yung trajectory. Pero merong argument ang mga Bitcoiners niyan. Kasi 'di ba tinasabi sila na grabe power hungry yung one. Pero sinasabi nila, no, we are not power hungry. Actually, we are just consuming the excess energy, wasted excess energy of the world. Kumbaga daw yung mga commercial daw natin ng mga appliances, madami doon yung excess. Then yun yung ginagamit lang nila. Hindi talaga yung, of course that can be argued, pero yun yung reasoning nila to debunk na power hungry sila. Pero everyone should not be worried kasi nga nandito na tayo sa transitioning ng POS sa proof of stake, which is very green energy efficient.
So, all throughout our discussion ngayon, sir, all our examples are mostly associated with finance.
Yes.
So, are there something na blockchain can other do, sir?
Yeah, of course, definitely. Kasi, kung titingnan natin, finance, kasi ang number one use case doon is for quite some time, yung monetary o yung fiat natin is not much innovation really happens. I mean, ang dami ng innovation na pumasok pero sa monetary wala. Pero when it comes to pumasok yung blockchain, Bitcoin, nagkaroon ng programmability na yung pera itself, yung native money. So, pwede mo siyang ma-program according to a functions, financial products or everything. Pero, kung titingnan mo, the verifiability trust layer extends to everything man kung titingnan mo. Kasi anything processes that needs verifiability, trust and ownership, ma-apply talaga si blockchain. Sample, supply chain. Supply chain is a very good avenue. Like meron nga we interacted with a project, nag-research siya ng project, Odus Tumam, which is a very good project, is how do you qualify a halal food? It's really a halal na hindi mo ma-verify as a consumer. Tingnan, you just trust the producer na halal to pero hindi mo ma-check. So through supply chain, ginawa niya na ma-verify mo from the farm to the logistic to the manufacturer, kung sino yung magre-repack until sa transit. Ma-verify mo, meron siyang ilalagay na QR code, scan mo doon, ma-verify mo na dumaan talaga siya sa mga processes na halal certified. So that para pag consume mo ng product is you have a very high confidence na halal talaga siya. So that's a very good uptick. Ang dami pang possible na pwede gawin dyan to verify. Then meron din sa yung tinatawag natin na end-to-end verification infrastructure. So importante din yan kung yung public documents sa government natin, private natin. Gusto mo bang for the rest of ang lakas na ng digitalization innovation, and meron pa tayong ang dami pang paper na anytime pwede masunog or ma-decompose and ma-problema tayo, hindi natin ma-trace ang data. We can basically use the immutability of blockchain kasi nga forever yung data andun. So makikita natin. So mabe-verify din kung sino yung issuer, sino yung nagbe-verify, and sino yung recipient. So pwede siya gawin sa mga IDs, document ng government. Kaya kung makikita nyo ngayon, is a very high time na nasa discussion yung blockchain bill ni Bam Aquino
Yes.
on the Cadena.
Cadena.
That's really the alignment kasi it's detrimental to corruption.
Mhm.
So, when you have an infrastructure which is 100% fully transparent, then mayroong verifiability, and of course, meron siyang kaakibat na tinatawag natin na accountability, na kaya natin matrace kung sino yung ano yung truthfulness ng data information. Unlike the traditional one na anyone can obscure, can edit behind the back, hindi natin alam. Pero dito, pag once na-commit na yun, either bad data or good data. Kasi si blockchain, on the concept of data, meron siyang neutrality. He accept bad data and good data. Pero yung tinatawag natin garbage in, garbage out, totoo yun siya. Pero the problem with that is naka-frame yun siya. Meaning, pag once merong bad data na pumasok, then ikaw yung nag-sign nun galing sa'yo, and ma-verify ng public na bad data na yun, it will automatically tied up to you. Hindi mo na ma-deny yun. Kasi during that time, during that hour, that day, si Rubes, sinay niya itong data na to na bogus. So, ang responsibility and accountability is papunta sa kanya. So, yun yung good aspect. Kaya, very, tawag ito, timely, na pasok si blockchain sa concept ng ginatawag natin na good governance. Hindi naman siya foolproof talaga na si blockchain lang talaga. It can be a customizable between Web 2 and Web 3, inherently making the application more robust. Pero we cannot deny na yung attributes ni blockchain as a very good functionality na pwede siya magamit for that aspect. So, doon na lang magkakatalo on how to customize it na magiging user-friendly, very accessible, then abstracted yung blockchain, hindi na kailangan ma-present yung complexity. Ang the infra level, pwede din ma-customize. Ang daming pwede collaboratively with AI, with Web2 access. So, pwede yun. I think they are doing that on the Cadena aspect na setup. So, yun. Ang possible, ang dami pa, yung mga tokenization of assets. Like, ang isa sa mga problema pala, idagdag ko yung titulo, di ba? Ang dami nag-aaway-aaway kung sino yung totoo na title. So, now, blockchain can basically tag the inherent and unique aspect ng immutability ng data na yan. So, kung papasok yan sa blockchain, naka-timestamp ay yung naka-sign sa private keys mo yung data na yan, wala nang pwede mag-claim yan kasi ikaw lang talaga ang ownership yan. So, it's a good, powerful, pero of course, we need a lot of, I think, education and technical professionals to make that happen dito sa Pilipinas kasi we're lacking in that aspect. Kasi blockchain as a technology, isa sa mga pinakamalaking percentage na kailangan sa kanya for implementation is yung expertise. So that's why kailangan natin mag-build ng mga expert dito so we can build a lot of real world use case and useful to our local na mga applications.
Okay, sir. So, since we're talking about the real life application of blockchain, so what do you think, sir, in your own opinion, nakaka-prevent from blockchain na magamit siya in the mainstream? Is it the trust? Is it the
Expertise.
boomer?
Okay, I think yung tinatawag natin na son of the hurdle is number one is yung education talaga. When I say education it basically encompasses everyone. Kasi kung when you say education, meron yung level eh. Kailangan mag-educate tayo when it comes to this technology to the level of awareness. I mean, this basically default to everyone. At least ba, pag tanungin ka, alam mo yung blockchain, at least meron kang overview. Meron din yung educational level na to be a practitioner. Na yung educational level mo, dadating sa point na pwede ka na mag-participate and become a participant. Merong educational level to the point na magiging builder ka. as a builder avenue. Merong educational level na magiging professional ka sa ganito na field. So meron ding educational level na you can create startups and implementations on a government and private level. So lahat yun, as much as possible ma-cover. If we can cover everything with that, siguro we can tell na nasa mass adoption na tayo. Yun din yung nangyayari sa internet, di ba? Hindi lahat natuto, pero ngayon, kahit lola natin, kaya na mag-Facebook.
Yes.
So, kasi nasa level of mass adoption na tayo. So, we are trying on that track, pero at least we're progressing. So, good thing, madami community-based tayo, hindi tayo corporate, na kailangan, you need to learn blockchain, you need to enroll to us, give us 50,000, and you'll learn blockchain. No, we community basically give it for free. Binibigyan pa ng incentives, lahat, di ba? Parang nandun na lahat kasi everyone wants to get able to have a grasp of the industry. So, I think with that intersection, merong chance talaga na dahan-dahan na mag-level out. And as we level out, as the private, as the government, as the academe gets educated, then magkaroon sila ng mga interest kung ano yung mga intersection of implementation. And that's really what happened with the blockchain bill with Bam Aquino, na nagiging inherently dahan-dahan na nakikita nila yung value. Hindi yung typical na blockchain is a scam about value lang, gano'n. No, the technology itself is very huge na kailangan i-explore. So yun, I think communities, government, private sectors, and even enthusiasts has a very good contributions to make this adoption eventually. Most especially dito sa Pilipinas, hopefully. Hindi na tayo yung typical na well-adapted na sa buong mundo, then, pwede kami mag-participate. Yung typical na kasama na tayo, mover na tayo.
So, like, I've seen lots of videos, sir, and also news, sir, about like, is blockchain really the key, sir, to solve corruption in the Philippines? But siguro, sir, we're not gonna delve on that. It's because it's really a critical opinion and issue. So my question, sir, is in what ways kaya, sir, possibly maka-corrupt yung mga politicians, or like some people na with bad deeds, sir? In what ways, sir?
Yeah, okay. So when it comes to siguro sa scenario na if blockchain is really the answer,
yes, sir.
The answer of that is definitely no. Hindi siya silver bullet in the sense. Kasi yun nga, I've been saying this, na blockchain inherently has some of the best attributes for that aspect, yung transparency and putting an environment where the corrupt will have a very short window to navigate, na gagawin nila yung mga bagay-bagay na ginagawa na nila. But we still need an adoption or end-to-end level. Like for example, mako-customize natin siya with the inherent Web 2 applications, kasi we're trying to put things in a level na number one is cost efficient siya. Number one, of course, as much as possible, we want na magiging well adapted siya pag mura. And yung blockchain at the current state, to be honest, kung i-build mo siya sa an infra, kanang scratch infra talaga, mahal talaga siya. It's very expensive. But of course, there are also options, like for example, yung sinasabi ko sa inyo na the inherent public blockchain can be used as a security. Gagamitin mo lang siya ba, parang itatap mo siya. I have my own Web 2 applications. Through my skill set, I can modify this and plug this to an existing public blockchain. Then gagamitin ko yung verifiability and consensus niya to validate my data information. So yun, mura yun kasi existing na siya. Iko-customize ko na lang. And the big question for that is, sino yung professionals na capable to do that? So kailangan dadating tayo sa level na yun, na magkaroon tayo ng ganyan so that we can implement. Then pwede din natin na i-intersection sa mga Web 2 and AI functions. So ang daming possibilities na pwede gawin. Na hindi lang si blockchain ang general na de facto, pero contributory siya for the wellness of the whole applications na magagamit. Like for example, putting all the informations of the government publicly, na lahat, kahit ordinary na tao na mayroong phone, kahit vendor lang ako, I can verify, oops, si congressman, meron siyang allocation na 10 billion ngayon. So, anong nangyari dito? Ba't nag-transfer siya ng 5 million? Anong pa nito? Pwede paki-explain, no? So, by that time, meron ng avenue na nakikita mo siya transparently. Hindi natin alam na 10 billion, then gumawa lang siya ng basketball court. You can justify that. Pwede pakita ng credential. So yun, real time, nakikita mo, verifiability. So ang ganda nun. If that can be, I think the trajectory of Kadena, papunta siya dun. With the help of the intersection of the Web 2. I can still say na ang Web 2 technology and even the professionals are very viable to create a good avenue to that. Pero meron ding intersection sa Web 3. So win-win din siya. Pero hindi talaga silver bullet na blockchain lang talaga.
Very solution set.
Siguro expectation, my insight lang guro about what Sir Rube said. My expectation shattered when I heard na is not the silver bullet in solving the corruption, but
Correct.
rather an small aid.
Technology as an aid sa mga functionality na kung titingnan natin, papalitin natin ang window ng mga corrupt to navigate. Kasi nga, inherently, makikita sila by public. So ikaw, if ever you're a corrupt person, then alam mo yung ginagawa mo is verifiable by publicly. So hindi ka talaga magko-corrupt. Ma-compel ka kahit corrupt ang mindset mo. I need to be truth kasi nakikita ang lahat eh. So yun yung setup na yun. So meron ding functionality na may involve lahat. Hindi lang si blockchain.
Magiging good actor.
So now that we have seen the potential, sir, the pros and cons of blockchain, sir, like simple students, sir, how can they start their journey on blockchain, sir?
Siguro on the context sa blockchain, kasi ganito, ang blockchain and Web3 industry is very early pa talaga na phase, no? So kung titingnan natin, ang pinaka first mindset muna na titingnan natin is, I think everyone would agree na kung sino yung pinaka-early makaparticipate and would fully understand and grasp sa isang tech, siya talaga yung early adopter. And of course, yung saying natin, the early worm, the early bird catches the worm. So I mean, we can agree with that kasi nga, alam mo ba na si Jeff Bezos dati, yung early days ng internet, very diligent and nakikita na niya, na-oversee niya kung ano yung possible trajectory ng internet. Kaya nag-adapt na siya as early, natuto na siya, nag-aral na siya. And what happens to him now? Lahat ng mga early adopters na nasa top level talaga pagdating ng mass adoption. Hindi yung typical na antay ka pa ng mass adoption, magiging user ka na lang. So how do you innovate yourself? Of course, fill in with information. Kailangan magiging updated ka, learn the technical side if you're more on technical inclined. Kung hindi naman, narrative, concept, how do I participate? Then of course, number one is how to become a builder. Sa students ng mga IT, or science, the most viable entry is really to become a builder. So yung builder na yan, when I say builder, you can be a talented professional sa loob ng blockchain na smart contract developer, a core developer. Kasi, to be honest, sobrang demand, ang taas ng demand. Kasi nga, ang baba ng hindi pa masyado well adapted. Secondly, instantly you become a founder. Imagine that, global founder agad ha. Kung meron kang idea dyan, then you can team with a builder, then conceptualize niya, magiging startup siya. And ang funding is limited, not limited to the local area on the Philippines or Mindanao, global yung mag-fund sa'yo. So, yung tinatawag nila na sa industry na to, you can go, you have a chance from 0 to 100 in a few minutes kung mayroong opportunity talaga, pumapasok ka. So, yan yung viability. Learn the technical side. So, meron yung mga workshops na ginagawa. I'm inviting everyone kung ano yung interest nyo. Kasi ang kagandahan din ng Web3, it's not really focuses on also on the builder side. Kung ano yung ginagawa ng Web 2, a-apply din sa Web 3 kasi meron din siyang soft skills and hard skills level. Soft skills like marketing, graphics design, yung tinatawag natin na PubMats, mga magawa ng mga video clip, mga lahat, kailangan din yan ng industry eh. Then, sa builder side naman, of course, yung mga smart contract developer na gumagawa ng applications. And of course, magbuo ng build, then get funded, win a hackathon sa global, then become a teacher, become an informal teacher, parang ganon. Importante din sa atin, like community-based, nagtuturo tayo. So, being a resource person para ma-spread yung technology. So, we have still have a lot of time to propagate, but the good thing is we're early. So yun yung talaga ang pinaka best caveat, and I think I fully believe na why it's timely para sa mga students like first year, second year, third year, fourth year, kasi this industry I think will propel and get adapted during sa generation ninyo, sa timeline nyo. I mean sa generation niya na magiging professional na kayo, parang doon meron ng inception talaga ng mass adoption, and yun nga, match talaga sa inyo. Sa kami na medyo younger pa, konti, we're just the early mover na to really instill sa mga newcomers. There's also actually a conversation in the industry na we should not be complacent sa industry to, sa loob, na we should not be complacent na kung sino lang yung nandyan, yun lang yung mag-activate and magpa-function and magko-consume and become a participants. We need to really include the younger ones. Sila kasi ang future generation for this technology to prosper. Malay natin, kayo ang next innovation na makagawa, application level, core level, and whatever level na mag-propel ito. So, yun, I always put that on the map of our community na i-touch base talaga ang mga younger generation kasi sila yung level of adoption eventually nito.
I think that's it for today's session on technology. Blockchain may sound complicated, but at its core, it's just trust, as we mentioned earlier and Cyril mentioned earlier. So whether you're curious, skeptical, or excited, it's still you're early.
So also, we would like to thank the Davao DeFi community, especially to Sir Rubes,
Thank you.
Sir Ruben Lacumba, and till the next block.
Stay curious,
Stay decentralized,
and as always, GM.